This was a really rough month for me personally, and I have to say, the books really pulled through. I loved pretty much everything that I read this month. So I read 16 books in the month of July, and I'm so excited to tell you about all of them. My name is Katie. If you haven't been here before, please consider subscribing to stick around for some more bookish content. Let's get started. So the first thing I have to show you is just a silly little book. This is Tricky Dog, Precious Dog. I read this to my dog, who is currently flailing about on the floor next to me. So if you hear dog noises, that's who's there. It's a really cute book where you put in your dog's name and say treats and outside and walks and stuff, and they hear it, and it's cute, and I made a vlog about it, so I'll put that there if you want to watch that. The first actual book that I read is Happy Hour by Marlo Granados. This is about two girls who don't have visas to work in the US, but they moved to New York City, and they're basically just trying to make enough money to pay rent and eat food and have as much fun as they possibly can. It's very Manic Pixie Dream Girl vibes. I had a really good time. It's a fantastic summer read if you're looking for something for the last month of summer. Then we have The House in the Cerulean Sea, and this is a new favorite. I loved reading this book. This is about an orphanage for magical children who have been deemed too dangerous for the other orphanages, and we follow our main character, Linus, who is a social worker. He's going to make sure that the children are safe and that the world is safe from the children. And it's just a fantastic, comforting, warm cup of tea kind of book. I really loved watching the caretakers of the kids parent them. Whoa, careful, careful, careful. Is this for me? Thank you very much. I really loved watching the caretakers take care of the kids, and the way that they parented them was just so lovely and wholesome, and it was a fantastic time. Then I read The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. This book threw me for a loop. The twist is absolutely insane. This was my first Riley Sager, and I was not expecting that type of twist from him. I don't know if this is a departure from his other works, but I'm definitely gonna pick up more from him in the future, because on the surface, there's not a lot going on in this book. It's a story that you may have heard before, but told in a completely different way. There's a woman living in a house on a lake, and she is spying on the neighbor across the lake. Very Rear Window vibes. I haven't read The Woman in the Window, but I'm assuming very similar to that. She has a drinking problem, so it's up in the air whether or not she's unreliable as a narrator, and the twist really got me. This wasn't my favorite thriller that I read this month, but I did really enjoy it. Next we have My Lovely Wife, which is probably my favorite thriller that I read this month. I love Samantha Downing, and I'll pick up anything that she writes. This is the story of a couple who is kidnapping and killing women. And it is absolutely a wild ride. I never really knew what was gonna happen next, and this book hooked me from page one. If you have read For Your Own Good, I would highly recommend picking up My Lovely Wife. I really, really enjoyed it. And honestly, I can't pick a favorite between For Your Own Good and My Lovely Wife. I loved them both equally. I do have a physical copy of this book, but I lent it to my friend because I loved it so much. She's already read it and absolutely loved it, so highly, highly recommend. Then I read Convenience Store Woman. I finally finished it. I have been trying to read this book for a very long time, and I read Earthlings first, which is another one of Sakamurata's books, and that book really threw me for a loop. I was not expecting the ending. I didn't read content warnings before I read it, which was stupid of me. I knew this was not going to be as intense as the ending of Earthlings, but I just needed a break from Sakamurata, and I picked this up while I was stuck in an airport. I was able to read most of it while I was waiting for my flight for a few hours. This is about a woman who works for a convenience store, and basically her family and her coworkers are wondering why she's not married or she doesn't want a better job, but she really likes her job at the convenience store. It's not on page, but it's very likely that our main character is not neurotypical. I get that a lot with Sakamurata's books. There's characters in Earthlings who I get the sense are not neurotypical as well, and I really, really love the way that Sakamurata writes neurodivergent characters and talks about how they think, how their internal monologue is different, and how the societal status quo doesn't work for them. This book does get a little weird, but definitely not as crazy as Earthlings, so I do definitely recommend this one. Then I read The Guest List, which I borrowed from my friend, so I've already returned it to her, and I had a really great time with this one. I read it mostly on audiobook, and I think that was a good choice for me. There are a lot of different accents in this book, so I really enjoyed the audiobook production. There's also not a lot that goes on in the first half of the book, I would say. It is very unsettling all the way through, but there's not a lot of twists and reveals that happen early in the book, so I enjoyed reading it as an audiobook. I tend to get bored reading a book physically if there's not a lot going on, so I think the audiobook was a really great choice for this. This is about a wedding, and Lucy Foley kind of does the wedding planner, the +1, where she gives everyone an archetype, and then we're following this cast of characters, and we're seeing from all of their different points of view and trying to figure out what's happened because somebody's murdered. Again, not my favorite thriller that I read this month, but I did really, really enjoy it. I loved the way that everything came together at the end. It was like putting that last puzzle piece into a puzzle. I will definitely be picking up more by Lucy Foley in the future. I really enjoyed the setting of The Guest List. We're on an island that is isolated, and there's a lot of conversation about the weather and nature. There's like a bog, and it just feels very gothic because of that nature imagery, and I really, really enjoyed it. The way that all the storylines came together, like I said before, really made my brain happy. Then I read The Last House on Needless Street, and I did read this in a Try a Chapter horror vlog, so I'll put that up there if you want to watch my in-depth thoughts on this. But this book has a twist in it that I am so conflicted over. The way that the book is set up, the author is tricking the reader for a reason. There is a social reason why the twist is what it is, and I've been thinking a lot recently about whether or not content warnings are spoilers, and I think in most cases, I'm definitely on team content warnings are not spoilers. With this book, I'm conflicted about that because the twist is a content warning, and I haven't read a lot of books that are like that, so I haven't fully fleshed out my thoughts on how I feel about that. I'm definitely would love to hear your thoughts in the comments if you've read this and you know what the twist is. The afterword in here is absolutely incredible, talks about why the twist is what it is and what her intention was, and I really enjoyed having that afterword because it brought to light how well researched this book is and why our author did what she did. I really loved the blurb on this, so I'm just going to read it to you. In a boarded up house on a dead-end street at the edge of the wild Washington woods lives a family of 3. A teenage girl who isn't allowed outside, not after last time, a man who drinks alone in front of his TV, trying to ignore the gaps in his memory, and a house cat who loves napping and reading the Bible. I loved the cat's perspective. Olivia was my favorite character in here. I absolutely loved getting her perspective. She, like the book says, loves reading the Bible, and she'll like knock the Bible off the table so it falls open, and she reads whatever verse she's on, and she like has her little religion, and I just thought it was incredible. This book is a wild ride all the way through. I never really knew what was happening, and some of the twists I called, but not all of them by far. This is not like any horror that I have ever read, so if you're looking for horror gothic vibes, but you want something that's new and different, I think this is a great choice. Then I read Finlay Donovan is Killing It, and I actually also read Finlay Donovan Knocks Them Dead because I loved the first book. Like I said, I had a bit of a rough month, and I wanted something that was going to be engaging, exciting, plot-driven, but also low stakes, and I think Finlay Donovan definitely fits that bill. It can be a little stressful at times because she doesn't know what she's doing, especially the second book. I kind of knew the formula of the series, and I was much less stressed out reading the second book, and it was just something nice that I put on as an audiobook while I was doing a paint by numbers because I was incredibly sick with COVID. The premise of the first book is that Finlay is a writer. She's meeting her agent in a Panera. Basically, the way that she's talking is very violent, and somebody overhears this conversation, and she thinks that Finlay is a hit woman, an assassin, and so she commissions Finlay to kill her husband. And Finlay becomes wrapped up in this situation. She's got a sidekick, there's a romance subplot. It's just a really fun read. It talks a lot about motherhood and people just trying to do their best. And I had a really lovely time with both of the books in this series. I'll definitely be picking up the third one when it comes out. Then I read What Moves the Dead. I was so happy to be able to pick this up in the month that it was released. I absolutely love T. Kingfisher's writing style. This is the first book I have picked up from her, but I'm definitely going to be picking up everything else I can get my hands on. I want to pick up Nettle and Bone, Sword Heart, The Hollow Places. I'm really excited. I really love the fact that this book was humorous and still incredibly unsettling, gothic vibes. I love books about fungus and mushrooms, so please let me know if you have any recommendations for other books like that. I've read The Girl with All the Gifts and the nonfiction This Entangled Life, and now this one, and I really loved all of them. This book includes a character who is non-binary, and I absolutely love reading books that have non-binary pronouns in them because I think it's a really great way for our brains to practice using those and get used to that. The pronouns in here are Ka and Khan, and our main character is a sworn soldier. Basically, Ka gets this letter from a childhood friend, and the childhood friend is dying. So Ka goes to figure out what's going on, see if she's really dying, and what Ka finds is a nightmare. This is incredibly gothic, and I pretty much knew what was going on very early in the story. Did not take away from my enjoyment of the book at all. Highly recommend this one. Let's be honest, I recommend everything I read this month. There's nothing on here that I didn't enjoy. Next, I read Horror Store. If you need a slasher that is cheeky and absurd, this one. Read this one. It's set up like an IKEA catalog because we're following the employees of an off-brand IKEA called Orsk. And so in the book, all the chapter titles are little products like an IKEA catalog. We're following our main character. She's kind of stuck in her job. She was transferred to another store. She wants to transfer back. She doesn't get along with her boss, and she's just kind of stuck. Some strange things are happening in the store. So one day, a few people are going to stay in the store overnight and try to figure out what's going on. A lot of stuff is going on. This book has a lot of social commentary wrapped up in a cheeky little bow. It's talking about capitalism. It's talking about surveillance. It's talking about the prison industrial system. I had a fantastic time reading this. I read it pretty much all in one sitting, and it's exactly the type of horror that I love. This book does get a little gross, so just a heads up for that. Then I read The Passengers by John Mars, and this is maybe, I think I might like this even more than I liked the one, which I loved. This is a near future, reads like a Black Mirror episode. That's kind of John Mars's brand. And we're following a bunch of different characters in self-driving cars. So in this near future, it is illegal to have a car that is not self-driving. So they're all in these self-driving cars, and the cars are taken over by a hacker, by a terrorist. And they're all told they're not going to live past the morning. And then there's this jury that we're also following who is basically deciding who lives and who dies because they can save one of them. And I absolutely devoured this book so quickly. It was exactly what I wanted. Another one of my favorite thrillers of all time now. This one and My Lovely Wife I enjoyed equally. They're both exceptional. If you're looking for a thriller that's high stakes, fast paced, this is the one. What's the matter? I'm almost done. I got 3 books left. Then I read I Kissed Cheryl Wheeler, and I have to be honest with you, this one was not my favorite Casey McQuiston, and I almost DNF'd this. But I don't think it's a bad book. I actually think this is an incredible book. I am so happy that there are people writing young adult like this. This book talks about a lot of queer themes. It's basically a queer Paper Towns, and I'm really happy that there are books like this for people who are in high school. I found it annoying in the same way that I would find reading Paper Towns annoying today, but I loved it when I read it while I was in high school. So I recommend this to its intended audience. Highly, highly recommend. All of our characters are extremely three-dimensional, well fleshed out. We're talking about serious topics, and we're talking about teenage love. It was a fantastic time. Although it didn't work for me, I definitely think that this book has a ton of value. Then we have Lonely Castle in the Mirror, which is a new favorite of all time. We're following a group of children who one day all find that the mirrors in their houses are glowing. They pass through the mirrors to find a lonely castle in the mirror and the Wolf Queen. She tells them that they have 1 year to find a hidden key that unlocks a door to the wishing room. One of them will be granted one wish, the first one who finds the key. Once the wish is granted, the castle will disappear forever. So that premise makes you think that this is going to be very plot driven, we're going to be looking for this key all the time, and that's not really what happens. It's much more of a character study. I said earlier that books that don't have a lot of plot I sometimes find hard to read physically. That was not the case with this book. I flew through it. Absolutely devoured this book in just a few days. I could not stop reading it. Sully really wants to play, so we're gonna go quick. This was so lovely. Felt like a warm cup of tea, a group hug. I loved learning about all of the characters' lives and what was going on with them. None of them are really going to school. They feel like outsiders and they're kind of finding community with each other. It was just a really beautiful book, and I would highly recommend it. And the last book I read this month is Bargain Bin Romcom by Lena Norms, one of my favorite YouTubers. This is her first poetry collection, and I had a fantastic time reading it. As the back says, this is a tongue-in-cheek look at living on a planet that is filmed with both doom and glitter. I did a reading vlog where I read you a couple of the poems in here, so if you're interested in finding out what some of the poems are before you pick it up yourself, I'll link that up here. I think this collection is beautiful. If you think poetry is not accessible to you or is not for you, this is a great collection to pick up. It's really short and it deals with modern day topics. It's not going to be stuffy poetry that you read in high school. It's very accessible and very beautiful. Definitely a huge dose of doom and glitter, and I really enjoyed it. That is everything that I read in July. Honestly, I can't believe that I had such an amazing reading month when my personal life was not having a great time. I'm feeling much better now. Thank you to everyone who sent me nice comments while I was sick. I really appreciate it. If you liked this video, please give it a like. It really helps me out. And if you'd like to stick around, please consider subscribing. I have a lot of really exciting things planned for August. I'll link my TBR up here if you want to see that. I'm going to be starting work on some longer projects where I'm reading 7+ books for a video that are themed and more well researched, and I'm really excited to be able to do that. Thank you guys so much for watching. I cannot wait for my reading month in August. I will see you then. Bye.